Well, what a song.
Yeah.
It's good to be here this morning, and only just got back really from being overseas, and I was away for over 6 weeks. There's a bit of reverb. So it's great to see you all and to see a few new faces here this morning. Some who haven't been for a while, it's good to see you. And I haven't been here for a while, so there we are. I think we've been to Papua New Guinea. I think we came back for one Sunday in between going again on our travels overseas. So there's a lot that's happening. And that song is so important because I was recently in Turkey. Turkey is, the bottom half of Turkey is Asia Minor in the Bible, and it's the place where Paul spent a lot of his time visiting churches, planting churches and visiting churches. And we had the joy of going to those places, Bill and I, with another couple from our board, Dennis and Judy Brown from Cambridge, and we just enjoyed being there. And but what was really evident for me was that the civilization that was there, the different empires had created and have fallen, are buried, and gone. And the only real lasting remnant of everything is the Ottoman Empire, which is Muslim. And so Islam is quite strong in Turkey, but it wasn't as evident as other places where I've been, like Malaysia. It didn't seem to have, there seemed to be a lot more secular Muslim people in Turkey. You can still hear the call to prayer. But these, it was wonderful to be in Ephesus, which they've excavated 18% of the old city, which was 250,000 people. And to walk down the main street of that place, where Paul and the other folk walked, and John and Mary and these different people. Mary and John, they ended up in Turkey. That's where he spent his last days, and of course the island of Patmos is off the coast there. It just reminded me of the fact that Christianity has had its ebbs and flows, and it is largely covered in many places of the world. But it is growing tremendously as well. And 50 years ago there wasn't a lot of Christianity in Turkey. Today there's quite a big church in Turkey, and particularly the Catholic Church is quite strong. And the guide that took us around is a Catholic lady. She didn't tell us that, we could tell, because she was very interested in Mary and her house, and she thought we'd spend a long time looking through that. We only spent about 10 minutes, but it was fine. We took a few photos and so on. So we've had that privilege. But why I talk about this is one of the things that's become evident for us is that the world is full of tension, and there are difficulties and stress, and countries are going through stress. And I'm going to talk about two of those this morning in particular, because they relate to our ministry. But our Advent theme is actually peace. And this is peace in the middle of turmoil, isn't it? So you can see the swords there being turned into plowshares, ploughing the ground. And that's really a pretty important for us. So let's begin reading. In Isaiah chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. And I've got some headings, I think it's on the next slide. Coming up there. Yep. So Isaiah 2, 1 to 5. And it reads like this. This is the vision that Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house will be the highest of all, the most important place on earth. It will be raised above the other hills, and people from all over the world will stream there to worship. This idea of hills and high places is very much a part of lots of different religious groups. And when you go to the 7 churches, the 7 places in Turkey there, it's evident that these places were built up high. So it's not just a Christian thing for people to go up to a place to worship, but it was a common contextual thing. People from many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob's God. So there's an invitation to go to Jerusalem here. There he will teach us his ways. Here's a reason for that invitation. And we will walk in his paths. For the Lord's teaching will go out from Zion. His word will go out from Jerusalem. The Lord will mediate between nations and will settle international disputes. They will hammer their short swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will no longer fight against nation, nor train for war anymore. Well, we wait for that. We wait for that. And this is, in a sense, what Advent is about, isn't it? It's waiting. Waiting for Christ to come again. Not just for the sake of coming, but to be the kingmaker, but the peacemaker. The peacemaker. And here's the invitation in verse 5. O house of Jacob, come let us walk in the light of the Lord. That's the invitation for us this morning. And that's the invitation I hope will leave with you as you go out the door this morning. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. And then John 16, the next slide, verses 31 to 33, peace amid trial and sorrows. Jesus asked, do you finally believe? But the time is coming, indeed it is here now, when you will be scattered, each one going his own way, leaving me alone, yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. That sense of being alone, but the Father being there, is important. And this is also what we need to learn in the middle of turmoil. I have told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth you will have many trials and sorrows. But take heart, because I have overcome the world. Philippians 4, 6 to 7. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything you can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and your minds as you live in Christ Jesus. So I want to reflect on two situations in the world that are relevant to us here. And the first one is Myanmar. And you can sort of see a picture there of the situation. I feel my heart goes out to my friends. And when I get texts or messages from Myanmar, it's often sad. My brother's been killed, or my brother's son has been killed, whatever, that sort of story. And this injustice that comes from the military and the effects of the regime continues. And that's a tough situation to be in, isn't it? But CK, who's the principal of the East, it's where Tintin taught for a while, and the principal there currently is CK, he writes this, and I think this is pretty amazing. Sorry the print's a little bit small, I've tried to get it on one slide. But anyway, there we are. He says this about peace. It is unbelievable to experience the peace Jesus promised us in John 14:27. Although Myanmar becomes a field of battles, bloodshed, murder, killing, we are serving the ministry with the peace Christ has given us. And secondly, a conviction that death and life are in the hands of our Almighty God, loving God. We serve His ministry with peace and boldness. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Here's the strange thing. It's interesting that Paul Windsor came back from being in India for a period of time, a number of years. He wrote some reflections on his blog, and one of the things he said was this. He said, I find it strange that in New Zealand when things get tough, we blame God and we want to give up on our Christian faith because it's tough. He said the opposite happens in other parts of the world. When things get tough, they look to God and they find peace in their relationship with Christ. Isn't that an odd thing? We have it all the wrong way around. And this is CK to a T. He's seeing hope in the middle of stress and tension and difficulty. And thirdly, a deep commitment, even daring to die for doing good and standing firm for injustice, gives us peace and courage to continue to do good, during difficult times and places. As Paul said, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. That's our posture. You know, I've been talking a lot about posture and tone in my preaching and talking, because I realise that while we have put a lot of emphasis on truth and doctrine in our churches in particular, we haven't put enough emphasis on our tone and our posture. And Paul's epistles and the Bible's full of it. People are very quick to see that we are angry or we are anti this or anti that, and they think our posture is against them. That's what a lot of non-Christians think, but in fact that's ought not to be. We're very much fallen because Christ's heart is for them. So what does that mean in our disposition and the way we present ourselves to people who do not have faith? So this is CK's disposition in Myanmar at the moment, and he's writing about peace even through these difficulties for them. And then the situation in Ukraine, which is pretty tough. And I sat around a table with our brothers and sisters who are leading some of the seminaries in Ukraine just 2 weeks ago. I was with them. And our hearts went out to them. Two things occurred to me. One, in Turkey, whenever I met a Turkish person and said I was a New Zealander, they came and hugged me. And they said, we're brothers. You know, we fought a war there and we lost a lot of young men. And they're buried with the Turks. And that's what they say, our sons are buried with your sons. And there are tears. Do you know it's strange that joy and love and togetherness and unity can come out of such pain? That it does. And our brothers in Ukraine, as I sat with them, I was crying with them. It's so desperate and so difficult for them. And they feel alone in many ways, particularly when Russian Christians think they should be blotted off the earth. Can you imagine a Christian brother and sister thinking about you that way? Isn't that awful? Do pray for them. But he says this, please pray for our soldiers these days. These are their conditions in the war, in trenches. Somewhere there is my brother, my several cousins, mentally, spiritually, prayerfully, we are there with them, day by day, waiting for 1 minute of news, once online, a couple or several days. Alive? Alive? Thank you for your prayers. Peace be with you, Terence writes. And here's a little video of the conditions that they're facing at the moment.
Посмотрите, в каких условиях ребята живут. Отдыхают после поста. Да. Из траёв товара. Вот так мы и воюем.
Yeah, pretty tough conditions. They tell amazing stories of God's intervention. Just incredible. Miracles, literally, of things that don't happen that should happen because God stopped it. And so they're surviving. And then the next picture, which is a very sad picture of a 2-day-old baby who was killed by the Russians with a rocket, which was buried in the city of Donetsk today. The Russians shelled and destroyed a maternity hospital. And he says, peace be with you and your children and your grandchildren. No sarcasm. Thank you for your prayers. You know, he says this a lot. He's just trying to help us get a sense of their desperateness and the starkness of their situation. They can't do much about it. It's tough for them. And I want you to listen to Taras. That's the next slide. Taras is speaking here. Now, the main thing is the fact that he's shooting a video in the dark. Why? Why would he be shooting a video in the dark? There's no power's on. So listen to what he says.
Hello.
dear friends and partners. We have a local blackout in our city of Rivne. Just got an insight about the darkness and light, that we can be bearers of God's light where we reflect the character of Jesus. And it's not about whether we see it physically or not. It's about the attitude to the world, to our neighbor, to the people in need. Peace be with you. Wish you peace, bread, and light, and silent night. God bless you.
Saviour, to all of you. Some of you have given to our appeal for Ukraine and for the work that Taras is organising in helping others in their refugee situation. The Bible colleges are working together in helping refugees, and they're their own people, but they're helping them. They're finding places for them, they're giving them food, and the money for that is coming from Kiwis and from Americans and from Canadians and from people in the UK and all around the place. I just challenge you again to think about this, and if you'd like to give to a cause that is needy, feel free to do that. Maybe you can do it through the chapel, through the church. We can send it on to our partners in Ukraine, to Taras who's organising that. Can you imagine the strength it takes to say, peace be with you, in the middle of such turmoil? Why? Because Christ is his centre. Christ is the engine that empowers him through the Spirit to live that life where he can bless others in the middle of cursings. Such a strong and powerful spirit of peace for this Christmas. He often says silent night, and he says it when the rockets are coming in overhead and they're hitting the houses and buildings around them. Silent night. Peace be with you, because he knows he's writing that to us, and that's what we've got, but he doesn't have it. Would we just take a minute to stand? And just let's pray quietly for the people of Myanmar, specifically, Tintin's people, and all those that she knows, and for our friend Taras and all their families and the seminaries that are working amongst such difficult times, that they would know the peace of Christ, but that we would also know as their brothers and sisters a deeper peace because we have shared this with them. May we do that for just 30 seconds. Thank you. You can be seated. As we look around the world, we see violent conflict that causes hunger, migration, devastation of infrastructure, leaving people without hope. But this Advent, we wait for the coming of the Prince of Peace so that the world might be reconciled and peace might prevail. A peace that is anchored in justice and mercy. A peace that shows compassion for those whose lives are disrupted, whose bodies are broken and whose voices are so often drowned out. As we wait, though, we, Christ's body in this world, can shine the light of God's peace on the violent conflicts around the world. May we lift our voices in prayer and advocacy and meditation. May our hands and our feet move in ways that demonstrate peace. We're going to take the Lord's Supper soon. And I just want you to reflect when you do take that about the Prince of Peace, who allowed himself to be broken, to be humiliated, so that you and I could have peace. And sometimes we find that hard to find. And so my prayer is this: Prince of Peace, people around the world are living amid conflict that leads to hunger, destruction and hopelessness. Please bless our world with peace and grant relief to those suffering in war-torn nations. Let us be beacons of light to everyone experiencing hunger and poverty as a result of violent conflict. Peace be with you.